It's a chilly, drizzly spring morning, and it has just been raining and raining, and I haven't been able to get anything else planted in the garden yet. Hopefully next week. So, since I don't have a lot going on today, I thought I might do a bit of a Q&A session and just have a chat with you guys. Over the last few years, I've been saving questions that have been sent to me, and some of them I've paraphrased, and yeah. So let's get into it. Brad P wants to know, do you guys have full-time jobs? And my husband does. He is actually a shift worker, a rotating shift worker, and I do not have an official job per se. There is actually somebody who I have not introduced to you guys yet, and that is our fully disabled adult son. He has a very rare genetic condition called Rubinstein-Taybi syndrome, and he requires 24/7 around-the-clock care. And so that has been my job since he was born. And so homesteading kind of comes in as number 2 job. And then I kind of started the YouTube channel as a creative outlet and as, I guess you'd say, kind of a sense of like having a job. So yeah. Do you guys have plans to go off grid? This is a question we get a lot, and I feel like it's a little bit over romanticized. But in short, the answer is no. And I've touched on this a little bit before. We really enjoy modern conveniences of running water, not having to worry about our electricity and septic systems. And secondly, for us to go off the power grid, the size of the array and the cost of the array that we would need, it would never pay for itself. So it doesn't really make sense for us. I've talked about this a little bit in a previous video, that our idea of going off grid means for us to try to get off the food grid as much as we possibly can. Have you achieved producing a year's worth of food yet? So we are in, I think, year 3 of doing this right now, and the answer is no, not really. We're focused primarily right now on achieving that with our corn, our staple crops, our corn, our potatoes, our tomatoes, and our beans. Last year, we did almost achieve putting enough tomato sauce on the shelf to make a year's worth supply. However, I did not get any diced tomatoes on the shelf, so there's still that. And we probably need, and I've talked about this before, we probably need like 4 times the potatoes that we got last year, which we got 100 pounds last year. I probably am going to need like 400 pounds to last a year. It is worth saying though that it is a really ambitious goal to produce 100% of your own food unless you dramatically change your diet, which in a lot of ways we already have to make that goal more achievable. But there are certain things we're never going to grow. I can't produce my own salt and pepper. I can't grow pineapples or other types of citrus fruits, and I obviously can't get saltwater fish here on my own land. So unless you cut all those things entirely out, then, 100% is just not realistic, but you can get darn close. Sean wants to know, how much acreage do you have, and what made you choose the property you are on to homestead? So we're here on 40 plus acres in the Allegheny Mountain range of the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia. That's a mouthful. We've lived on this property for 10-ish years, but when we bought this, we didn't know we were going to be homesteading here. So we didn't buy the property with that in mind. It was only in 2021 that we started doing this. And actually, when we started in 2021, it was our second time doing homesteading. Yeah, so when we bought the property, we just bought it because we liked how private it was. On that same note, this property is very, very steep. Most of it is very steep, and there's a lot of really large rocks, very rocky, and it's really heavily wooded, and there's very limited land that's usable as far as homesteading goes. And our plans for how we would like to move forward in the future with our homestead, this land really isn't going to meet our needs, but for the scale and the things that we're doing right now, it's definitely adequate. How did you learn the skills needed to homestead? I'm surprised how many times I've gotten this question, and 99% of what we know or learned, we've taught ourselves through books and videos and things like that. And just never being afraid to try new things. Neither of us grew up in this lifestyle. Glenn's grandparents lived here in West Virginia, and his grandpa raised beef cattle, and his grandma had a pretty large garden. She was a very avid gardener. Now, Glenn's stepdad was a contractor, and so he used to work with his stepdad doing his contracting stuff, and so Glenn learned a whole lot about construction through his stepdad. As far as I'm concerned, my mom and dad they've kind of always had a pretty decent sized garden, and my mom, when I was young, would can a lot of stuff, and my dad would hunt and put food on the table that way. But I don't really remember a whole lot of that because I was pretty young at the time. It was around 2008, not too long after me and Glenn, my husband, had moved here to West Virginia, that we started getting involved with homesteading. Before we even knew it was called homesteading, we just got 6 chickens, put in a large garden, and started teaching ourselves the skills we needed to learn how to become more self-reliant. And then we got out of doing that type of lifestyle until we started doing it again in 2021. Honestly, you just have to dive right in. Don't try to do too much at once. And I always tell people, get some chickens, put in a smallish garden, and just start learning from that and learning how to, if you really like tomatoes, just plant tomatoes and can that, learn how to deal with all that, and then start expanding your garden, expand your chickens if you want, but don't get into too many things at once. Take your time, because homesteading is one of those things where you have to kind of be a jack of all trades, and there's so many different aspects of it, so much to learn. Dustin T asks, homesteading seems like a lot of work. When you can buy organic food, why go through all the effort to do it on your own? And that's a really good question. It is a lot of work. But no great reward comes without great effort. And yes, it's true. We could just go buy organic food. Might even save us some money. Probably would save us some money. But there are endless examples of lack of oversight and downright corruption when it comes to food labeling. So much so that I've pretty much lost trust in the labeling system, or whatever you want to call it. Not to mention the fact that non-GMO project labeling doesn't actually mean there's no GMO in your food. In fact, non-GMO labeled food for human consumption can contain up to 0.9% GMO to still have that label smacked on it. Animal feed, up to 5% GMO can be found in the animal feed and still have a non-GMO label, which to me is a crock of, because it's a lie. Now granted, when I do buy foods, I still pay the extra to have the organic label or non-GMO label smacked on it, but I know I'm rolling the dice and I don't really know what's in the food to grow it myself. Did you go to film school or have any formal training? This question absolutely humbles me, and I'm surprised how many times that it's asked, but no, I did not. Since I was a little kid, I wanted to make movies. In fact, I asked my parents for one of those VCR camcorders. I think they were pretty expensive back then, and I never got one. But I wrote movie scripts and pretended I was filming movies. And I've probably been making videos for the last 20 plus years of some sort, whether it was family vacation videos or just silly little things like skits and things like that or whatever. And then I ended up getting like little pocket cameras. One of them was later on was an Olympus 4010, and I ended up filming with, of course, when iPhone came out, I started filming with iPhone. The beginning of this channel, I filmed with an iPhone 6 with lens adapters, special apps, and things like that, which honestly was great because I learned a lot about composition, depth of field, color grading, audio editing, and just editing in general. And then in the last year, I ended up getting a full frame camera, which has been absolutely amazing. It was everything that I ever wanted come true. But really, guys, thank you all for the very kind compliments and comments. It means a lot to me. And that question ties into another question that I get asked a lot, and that is, what gear do I use to film for the YouTube channel, and I am planning on making a video about that, so I'll keep you posted. But there are a few links of the main gear that I use in the description down below if you're interested. Monica wants to know, how much of your own meat do you produce? Well, currently right now, pretty much none. We did harvest 3 roosters this year, but in the grand scheme of things, that's not very much. We will do meat birds eventually in the future. Not sure when yet. We would love to raise our own beef, but this property doesn't really support that. So currently, as it stands right now, we buy all our beef from our butcher, who actually raises local beef. Kathleen wants to know, why did you choose salmon Faverolles as your breed of chicken? It was pretty simple, really. It wasn't based on a ton of logic, but a little bit. So when we had our first chickens back in, I don't know, 2008-ish, like I've talked about before when we first homesteaded, we had a rooster that was basically a man fighter. He was terrible, and we ended up dispatching him. But he really turned me off to chickens in general. So when we talked about doing homesteading again this time, I was dead set on finding a breed of chicken that the roosters were super calm. And I had read that the salmon Faverolles roosters tended to be pretty well behaved. And plus, they were really cute. So, I've had great luck with the temperament of our Faverolles. I've had only one out of all the roosters we've had that was a man fighter. They are not good as meat birds whatsoever. They have very little meat on them. If you want to, they're not good dual purpose birds. Their egg laying is mediocre. It's not terrible, not great. So I don't know, if you like really cute chickens, they're a great one. But if you want an egg layer, I really like the Orpingtons that we've gotten. They lay much better. And even though a lot of people say the Faverolles will go broody, I've never once seen one of my hens go broody. But an Orpington, she will sit on a nest anytime. Jamie asked, what do you do when you're not doing homestead things? Hobbies? This is a fun question. So I have quite a lot of hobbies, really. The main ones right now are, I'm a self-taught cellist, still learning. I play some piano. I used to play violin, don't currently. I recently took up acrylic painting. I enjoy running and anything working out, fitness related. And me and my husband enjoy playing like co-op FPS games together, especially during the winter when we have more time. So yeah, I have a lot of things I like. That was a lot of fun answering you guys' questions. And if you would like to send me your question to consider for answering in a future video, you can do that by sending me an email at questions@AlleghenyHomestead.com.